The billionaire's daughter had not spoken a single word in 3 years, and every specialist her mother hired had eventually admitted they could not reach her. Then, on one ordinary afternoon, a quiet single father walked into the family's garden, sat several feet away from the silent child, and did something nobody else had thought to try. He did not ask her to speak. He did not promise to cure her. He simply made her feel safe. Less than an hour later, the girl opened her mouth and whispered a word that made her billionaire mother collapse in tears. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances can change a life, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a meaningful comment, and subscribe to our channel so you can remain part of our family and our community. Clara Ashford had spent years building a life that looked perfect from the outside. At 43, she was the founder and CEO of a global healthcare company, a woman whose name appeared on magazine covers and whose decisions affected thousands of employees. Her fortune could buy almost anything. She owned a magnificent estate, traveled privately, and had access to the finest specialists in the country. Yet there was one thing money could not give her: the sound of her daughter's voice. Her daughter, Beatrice, was 10 years old. 3 years earlier, Beatrice had been a cheerful child who loved piano lessons, horseback riding, and making up stories about the animals in the garden. Then a traumatic event changed everything. Beatrice witnessed a devastating accident involving a close family member, and afterward she stopped speaking. Doctors found nothing physically wrong with her vocal cords. Specialists explained that severe emotional trauma could cause a child to withdraw from speech as a form of psychological protection. Clara refused to accept that silence might become part of their lives. She hired speech therapists. She hired psychologists. She brought specialists from other cities. She even flew experts to their estate. Nothing worked. Some professionals pressured Beatrice to speak. Others tried reward systems. A few suggested simply waiting. But every failed attempt seemed to push the girl farther away. Beatrice continued communicating through drawings, gestures, facial expressions, and a small tablet. She understood everything around her, but whenever someone asked her to speak, she shut down. Clara slowly became desperate. Her desperation turned into control. She planned every hour of Beatrice's day. She decided which therapists she would see, which activities she would attend, and which people could approach her. She believed she was protecting her daughter. In reality, Beatrice was becoming increasingly isolated. Then came Grant Mercer. Grant was 37, a single father raising his 8-year-old son, Wesley. He worked as a maintenance specialist for one of Clara's properties. He repaired gates, electrical fixtures, irrigation systems, and mechanical equipment. He was quiet, dependable, and rarely noticed by the wealthy people who passed through the estate. Nobody there knew that Grant had once served as a Navy SEAL. His military career had taught him discipline, patience, observation, and the ability to remain calm when everyone else was panicking. He had served in dangerous operations and witnessed things he rarely discussed. After leaving the military, he struggled to adjust to ordinary life. His marriage eventually ended. Wesley became his greatest responsibility. Grant decided that being a good father mattered more than anything else. He wanted his son to remember him as the man who attended school events, fixed broken bicycles, and always came home when he promised. Grant never talked about his military history unless someone specifically asked. Clara barely noticed him. Until one afternoon. Beatrice was sitting beneath an old maple tree in the garden, holding her sketchbook. She had been drawing the same picture repeatedly for weeks. A little girl standing beside a closed door. Grant was repairing a nearby garden bench. He noticed her drawing but did not approach. He continued working. Beatrice looked at him. Grant looked back briefly. Then he returned to the bench. For some reason, his lack of curiosity made her feel comfortable. She slowly moved closer. Grant noticed that one of the bench's wooden slats was damaged. He handed Beatrice a small piece of sandpaper and showed her how to smooth the rough edge. She followed his instructions. Neither of them spoke. They did not need to. Over the next several days, Beatrice began spending time near Grant. Sometimes she watched him work. Sometimes she helped him organize tools. Sometimes she simply sat nearby. Grant never asked why she did not speak. He never mentioned her condition. He never treated her as broken. That was the first thing that made Clara suspicious. She watched from a window as her daughter laughed silently while helping Grant repair a birdhouse. It was the most relaxed Beatrice had looked in months. Clara asked her staff to investigate Grant. The report revealed his military history. Former Navy SEAL. Decorated service record. Single father. No criminal history. No suspicious financial activity. No hidden agenda. Still, Clara remained cautious. She had become so frightened of losing Beatrice that she distrusted anyone who got close. Grant's son, Wesley, eventually began visiting the estate with him. Wesley and Beatrice became friends. They communicated through drawings and gestures at first. Grant encouraged them to build a small wooden shelter for birds. Beatrice became obsessed with the project. For the first time since losing her voice, she had something that was not about therapy. It was simply fun. One afternoon, Clara confronted Grant. She told him that Beatrice needed professional treatment, not distractions. Grant listened respectfully. He explained that he had no intention of replacing her daughter's doctors. He only believed that Beatrice needed moments where she could exist without being reminded that everyone was waiting for her to speak. Clara became defensive. She accused him of interfering. Grant did not argue. He simply stepped away. The next day, Beatrice noticed that he was gone. She stopped drawing. She refused to go into the garden. Clara realized immediately what had happened. She had removed the one person her daughter trusted because she was afraid. But before she could reconsider, Beatrice became overwhelmed during another therapy session. The therapist asked her repeatedly to say a simple word. Beatrice began shaking. Clara finally stopped the session. That afternoon, she found her daughter sitting alone beneath the maple tree. She sat beside her. For once, she did not ask Beatrice to speak. She simply held her hand. Beatrice leaned against her mother. Clara cried quietly. She realized that for 3 years she had been measuring her daughter's recovery by words. She had forgotten to measure it by smiles. Then something unexpected happened. Grant returned to the estate to collect his tools. Beatrice saw him through the window. She immediately stood and ran outside. Clara followed. Beatrice reached Grant and stopped. She looked at him for several seconds. Grant crouched down. He did not ask her to speak. He simply waited. Beatrice's lips trembled. Then, for the first time in 3 years, a tiny sound escaped her throat. It was barely audible. But Clara heard it. Beatrice whispered one word. She said, "Home." Clara covered her mouth. Grant's eyes filled with tears. Beatrice had not been asking for a place. She had been describing a feeling. The garden, her mother, Wesley, and the quiet moments where nobody demanded anything from her had begun to feel safe. That was the moment Clara finally understood. Grant had not taught her daughter how to speak. He had helped create a place where she was no longer afraid to try. From then on, everything changed. Clara stopped treating every day as a medical test. She gave Beatrice choices. She allowed her daughter to decide which activities she enjoyed. She stopped correcting every imperfect sound. Grant continued encouraging her gently, always reminding Clara that progress was not a straight line. Some days Beatrice spoke. Other days she returned to silence. Nobody treated those days as failures. Wesley remained her closest friend. The two children began creating a small garden project together. They planted flowers, painted signs, and built birdhouses. Beatrice slowly regained confidence. Then Grant's past came back into focus. Clara discovered that his decision to leave the Navy had not been simple. During one mission, Grant had been part of a rescue operation that went terribly wrong. A teammate died while helping evacuate civilians. Grant survived, but he carried guilt for years. He believed he should have done more. His military training had taught him how to survive danger. It had not taught him how to forgive himself. Beatrice's recovery unexpectedly helped him. Watching her learn to speak again taught Grant that survival was not something to apologize for. Sometimes surviving meant you were given another opportunity to help someone else. Months passed. Beatrice's voice became stronger. She began speaking short sentences. She returned to school. She joined an art program. Clara began changing too. She reduced her workload and spent more afternoons with her daughter. She started listening instead of solving. She stopped asking whether Beatrice had spoken that day. Instead, she asked how Beatrice felt. That small difference transformed their relationship. Then came a bright afternoon that tested everyone. Clara's company was hosting a children's charity event on the estate grounds. Beatrice and Wesley were helping volunteers organize books. A large temporary canopy suddenly became unstable when a support mechanism failed. The structure began collapsing toward the children. People panicked. Grant reacted instantly. His old training returned. He moved toward the children, shouted instructions, and guided them toward a safe area while security personnel secured the damaged structure. Beatrice froze. Grant reached her. Instead of dragging her, he crouched down and used the calm signals they had practiced. Beatrice followed him. The canopy crashed behind them. Everyone was safe. But Grant had injured his arm while helping Wesley move away from the falling structure. Clara rushed toward him. Beatrice grabbed Grant's hand. She was crying. Then she spoke. Her voice trembled, but everyone heard her. She told him not to leave. Grant looked at her with tears in his eyes. He promised that he was staying. Clara watched them. She finally understood the full meaning of her daughter's progress. Beatrice had not simply found her voice. She had found the courage to use it when someone she loved needed to hear it. Clara apologized to Grant for doubting him. She admitted that wealth had made her believe every problem could be solved if she controlled enough variables. Grant told her that some things could not be controlled. They could only be supported. Clara accepted the lesson. Their relationship grew slowly and naturally. There was no instant transformation. There were difficult conversations. There were moments when Clara became overprotective again. There were moments when Grant struggled with his past. But they learned to forgive each other. Eventually, Clara established a foundation dedicated to children recovering from trauma and communication difficulties. Grant became one of its mentors. He taught families that courage was not always loud. Sometimes courage looked like a child saying one word after 3 years of silence. Sometimes it looked like a mother admitting she had been wrong. Sometimes it looked like a former Navy SEAL sitting quietly beside a frightened child and waiting for her to decide when she was ready. Before we reach the ending, please leave a meaningful comment telling us what you think truly helped Beatrice find her voice. Was it Grant's patience, her mother's change, the friendship with Wesley, or simply the feeling of finally being safe? Your answer could give hope to someone in our community who is facing a struggle that nobody else can see. One sunny afternoon, Clara stood outside the Foundation's new community center. Beatrice was helping younger children paint. Grant was repairing a wooden bench nearby. Wesley was carrying supplies. Beatrice suddenly walked over to her mother. She smiled and began telling her about a drawing she had made. Her voice was not perfect. Sometimes she paused. Sometimes she struggled to find a word. But Clara did not interrupt. She listened. That was the greatest change of all. Years earlier, Clara had spent millions searching for someone who could make her daughter speak. Now she understood that nobody had ever possessed that power. Beatrice had always had a voice. Trauma had simply buried it beneath fear. Grant had not dug it out. He had simply sat beside her long enough for her to believe it was safe to use. The former Navy SEAL had once been trained to survive dangerous missions where silence and discipline meant everything. But his greatest victory had nothing to do with combat. It was helping a little girl understand that she did not have to be afraid of her own voice. And Clara, the billionaire who once believed she could solve every problem with money, finally learned the value of something wealth could never purchase. Patience. Trust. Forgiveness. And the courage to let someone you love heal at their own pace. Beatrice looked toward Grant and smiled. Then she turned back to her mother and said the words Clara had waited 3 years to hear. She told her mother that she was happy. Clara hugged her tightly. The garden was filled with sunlight, children, laughter, and the sound of a voice that had once seemed lost forever. And for the first time, Clara did not wonder how to protect her daughter from the world. She simply stood beside her while her daughter bravely stepped into it. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey.